Imagine holding a small, everyday copper coin between your fingers and realizing that this humble 2006 Lincoln cent, something you might spend without a second thought, could actually be the hidden gem you've been hunting for. No flashy panning or dusty safs here. Just a run-of-the-mill penny that slipped through the mint's quality checks, waiting decades later to surprise a collector. Today, we're peeling back the layers on one of the most intriguing modern rarities in the U.S. penny series, the 2006 Lincoln cent era varieties. Let's explore how an ordinary coin transformed into an extraordinary prize for savvy numismatists. Back in 2006, the Philadelphia and Denver mints were busy cranking out Lincoln cents at an astonishing clip, over 11 billion coins in total. At first glance, these pennies look identical to millions of their siblings. The familiar profile of Honest Abe on one side, the Union Shield on the other. But here's where it gets interesting. A tiny subset of coins emerged sporting a double-die error on the reverse shield. Instead of crisp, single lines, enthusiasts began noticing faint, ghostly echoes, doubled inscriptions, and silhouette outlines that should never have existed. In a manufacturing line designed for precision, this kind of misalignment is heartbreakingly rare, which instantly thrusts these misstruck cent from pocket change status to serious collector's items. What exactly should you look for? The key identifying feature is that doubled image on the reverse, most apparent in the word 1 and the shield's vertical stripes. Under magnification, you'll see a second, offset impression hugging the primary design. It isn't obvious to the naked eye. So many find these treasures by accident when inspecting coins for other varieties. On top of that, some specimens exhibit faint doubling on the obverse around Lincoln's profile and the date, making them even more desirable when both sides show the error. Once you know these red flags, you'll start spotting potential prize coins in rolls you'd otherwise toss. Now, you might wonder, what's the market doing with these misfits? In circulated grades, a modest example in VG8 or F12 might fetch between $20 and $50 among dealers. Not bad for a penny you probably paid face value for years ago. But when you leap into uncirculated territory, MS63 to MS65, auction records soar. I've seen MS64 specimens hammer at $300, and a pristine MS65 Plus piece with razor-sharp doubling even climbed past $850 at a major auction 2 years ago. That level of interest from specialized error coin collectors underscores how passion transforms the mundane into the magnificent. Of course, not every 2006 double die is created equal. Some coins just barely catch the doubling, light die shifts that fool even seasoned eyes, while others scream, mint mishap with bold, textbook doubling that practically pops off the shield. Premier auction houses like Heritage and Stack's Bowers have highlighted standout pieces in their catalogs, often as the surprise headliners of modern-era coin lots. One auctioneer joked that they almost called it the penny that shouldn't have been collection. But behind the humor lies the fact that genuine error pennies remain scarce, especially in top grades. Beyond the double die, another rare breed from 2006 is the repunched mint mark variety, particularly from Denver. On some D mint marks, look for signs of the original mint mark impression shifted slightly before the die was fully punched home. These RPMs, repunched mint marks, can be subtle, but collectors chasing variety sets will pay up to $200 for a clean MS65 example. It's a reminder that when a mint worker has to repunch a mint mark, that very human moment gets immortalized on the coin, and in turn, makes it collectible. But here's one of my favorite stories. A collector in Ohio discovered a faintly double die 2006 penny in his change, tucked among soda machine returns. He didn't know what he had until he ran it through his microscope at home and saw that ghost image on the shield. Realizing its rarity, he consigned it to an auction where it sold for $1,200. The photo of him grinning beside his lucky find made its way around numismatic forums, proof that lightning can strike anywhere, even in a cashier's till. As the market continues to recognize the allure of modern-era coins, the 2006 double dies and RPM stand as proof that even today's pocket change can conceal hidden treasures. And speaking of treasures, next we'll journey back to a transformative year in the Lincoln cent saga, the revolutionary 1970 penny. Stay tuned, because you won't believe the story behind that one. Errors. But thanks to the public frenzy and aggressive collecting in the 90s, many were pulled from circulation early, especially in higher grades. If you're trying to identify one, it's all in the obverse. You want to focus on the doubling in Liberty and In God We Trust. The letters will appear thick with a sort of shadow behind them, especially noticeable in the T, R, and U. Unlike many other double dies where the effect is minimal or even questionable, this one is strong and easy to spot. That clarity is a big reason why it's so beloved. So how much is a 1995 double die penny worth today? In circulated condition, say XF to AU, you're looking at around $25 to $75, depending on sharpness. Not bad for a penny, right? But if you get into the uncirculated grades, especially MS65 and above, prices jump significantly. Certified MS66 examples often sell for $200 to $300. And if you have an MS67 with full red color and clean surfaces, that can fetch over $1,000 at auction. PCGS has only graded a handful in MS67RD, which means collectors compete fiercely for top-end examples. One of the highest recorded sales came in 2017 when a gorgeous MS67RD example sold for just over $1,400. That might not rival some of the astronomical prices we've seen with older key dates or gold coins, but for a coin from the mid-1990s, it's a serious number. And more importantly, it shows how even in recent minting history, incredible value can emerge from everyday currency. There's also a fascinating backstory involving counterfeit concerns. Because of the coin's fame, a number of fake 1995 double dies began appearing online and at flea markets in the early 2000s. Most of these were altered coins, where someone tried to mimic the doubling using chemical or mechanical means. But experts and graders can spot those instantly. Real 1995 double dies have doubling that's part of the die itself, not something added later. So again, authentication matters, especially if you're dealing with higher-grade coins. And that brings us full circle. Whether it's the minting missteps of 2006, the elusive elegance of the 1970, a small date, or the bold doubling of 1995, each of these coins tells a story about history, human error, discovery, and the thrill of the hunt. For collectors, these aren't just pieces of metal. They're time capsules waiting to be found, understood, and appreciated. So the next time you handle a penny, take a second look. You never know what treasure might be hiding in plain sight. All right, let's rewind the clock to 1970, a year of denim jackets, classic rock, and one of the most talked about modern pennies ever struck. The elusive 1970 S small date Lincoln cent. To the average person, it's just another old penny from grandma's coin jar. But to collectors in the know, this tiny variation has become a white whale, especially when found in pristine proof condition or with the right blend of features that makes it truly rare. Now, let's start with a bit of context. In 1970, the San Francisco Mint produced two different proof versions of the Lincoln cent, the large date and the small date. The differences are subtle but meaningful. The small date variety has a more delicate appearance, especially in the number 7, which curves upward and sits higher than its large date counterpart. The word Liberty also appears slightly weaker due to the die characteristics. These may sound like microscopic details, but trust me, in the collecting world, these little quirks make all the difference. Out of roughly 2.6 million proof pennies minted in San Francisco that year, only a tiny percentage were the small date variety. And when paired with another minting anomaly, like the absence of the S mint mark altogether, you're talking about a coin that borders on legendary status. That's not hyperbole. In fact, there's a famous instance of 1970 S small date proof coin graded PR 69 DCM Deep Cameo that fetched a jaw-dropping $18,000 at auction. And that wasn't decades ago. That was recent. Demand remains red-hot for top-grade examples, especially those that have been slabbed and verified by PCGS or NGC. So how do you spot one? It really comes down to the date. On the small date version, the 7 has a slight hook and sits nearly level with the 0 rather than dipping below it, as on the large date. Also, the tops of the digits in 1970 align more evenly. It helps to compare side by side with a large date for visual reference. A microscope or high-res digital photo will help you be sure. And again, look for weak Liberty lettering. It's one of the most telling signs you might be holding a sleeper. But the rabbit hole goes deeper. Among Lincoln Cent specialists, one of the most coveted and curious variants is the 1970 S small date with a double die obverse. That's right, we're talking about a proof coin that's already rare, made even more desirable by second layer of error. On these, the doubling is most noticeable in Liberty and the date. Coins with strong doubling and deep cameo contrast, mirror-like fields and frosty devices, are the true holy grails. We're talking values in the $10,000 to $20,000 range for pristine PR69 cams, depending on market timing and buyer appetite. What makes this coin so compelling isn't just the rarity, it's also the mystique. Unlike many modern errors or varieties that are well documented from day one, the 1970 S small date sort of slipped into the hobby's consciousness. For years, some collectors were tossing them aside, thinking they were just another proof cent. But then, as knowledge spread and die diagnostics became more precise, interest skyrocketed. Suddenly, everyone was revisiting their old proof sets from 1970, hoping they'd overlooked something big. And here's a fun fact. There was once a run on 1970 S-proof sets at coin shows in the early 2000s. Dealers would swoop in and buy them by the box, hunting for that one valuable small date buried among otherwise common cents. It created a kind of frenzy, sort of like treasure hunting in plain sight. And yes, even today, unopened proof sets from that year still carry a slight premium because of the possibility, however slim, that they may contain the small date variety. Now, let's talk about condition-based value differences, because that's where the numbers really start to spread. A circulated 1970 S small date found in the wild, though uncommon, might bring in $50 to $100 depending on where. But a gem uncirculated or proof version in PR 66 or higher, that's where the hundreds become thousands. In PR 68, prices climb above $2,000 consistently. And at PR 69 DCM, well, as I mentioned earlier, you're in rarefied air. The population is incredibly low, and competition among collectors is fierce. So the next time you come across a dusty old proof set at a garage sale or coin shop, give that 1970 cent a closer look. It might just turn out to be the crown jewel of your collection. And speaking of elusive beauties, next we're fast-forwarding to another sleeper hit among modern pennies, the fascinating tale of the 1995 double die Lincoln cent. You won't want to miss what makes that one so special.